Hello and welcome back to another episode of the On the Sideline podcast with Jackson and Kyle. That's right, Kyle is back. He wasn't here last week, but we're having him back. Kyle, you were so distraught after last week that after the Patriots lost, you just didn't even want to be a part of the podcast.
Yeah, I made the long 4-hour drive to Houston to watch. Deshaun Watson essentially eviscerate my team.
Yeah.
So that was brutal to watch. Tough game, tough weekend. Obviously, a lot of driving, but it's good to be back on the show and giving my awesome takes.
Yes, delusional Patriots fan says Patriots still have a chance, so username checks out on that one. So how was that? How was seeing Deshaun Watson? Really an incredible game. I mean, I feel like if anything, that's just gonna be frustrating as a Patriots fan. It just Watson went off, and sometimes that just happens.
Yeah, the thing is I keep thinking back on it. The Patriots continue to do things that frustrate me this season. They continue to come out ultra conservative in the first half. It's like they don't want to mess up on offense and let their defense do things. And I just think that that's not going to work. I think that we've seen it in the fourth quarter of games. Cam Newton's not a short timing route kind of guy. Those routes, he misses those routes time and time again. And a lot of it has to do with, as just about every commentator brings up and think they're offering new insight into Cam Newton, his footwork's not very good. We all know his footwork's not very good. But when he has time and he's throwing the ball 10, 15 yards down the field, he throws a pretty good intermediate ball. And his percentages are way up on that level rather than a 5-yard route. I think that they need to be a little more aggressive on offense early in the game. And yeah, I mean, Watson was really good. A lot of it was using his tight ends too. A lot of it wasn't attacking them with the wide receivers, those three guys that they have. Although Fuller ended up having a pretty good game at the end by getting some fourth quarter yards. But, Watson had a really good game, but a lot of it came down to there's probably 5 or 6 good throws that he had that a lot of quarterbacks would have had incomplete because it was good coverage. He just made a perfect throw and it killed us.
Yeah, no, he was incredible. I've made a video about that. We also, Eli Mullen in the chat says Kyle looks different from last podcast. We want to say thanks again to Hook Cam for filling in for Kyle. He did a great job on that one. And yeah, I mean, all right, we'll just get back into our regular show. It's a tie game, by the way. We've tied things up. We haven't. You tied things up. Let's just get into the Monday night game, and then we'll get into our picks. Because, I mean, yeah, both our teams, I think, have about the same chance of winning a Super Bowl, which is 0. I still stand by this. I don't think this team is a Super Bowl team. They just have too many of these ugly losses on their roster. It's not 0, but if the Bucs win the Super Bowl, they're going to have to either drastically change their team or and get better in these next few weeks, or they're going to have to basically just pull off like 3 or 4 upsets because I don't know. As of right now, this doesn't even look like a team that could get out of the first round unless they get the 5 seed and play NFC East team.
Well, that's what's going to happen. I think regardless of the result this week, I think this team's probably 11-5, and at 11-5, they're probably rolling in as the 5 seed, playing the Giants or the Cowboys or the Eagles in the first round. I mean, I think the best case scenario for the Bucs would be 5 seed, they play the Giants, win that game, and find a way to play Green Bay in the second round. Because that's just a very good matchup for them. And then at that point, they're in the NFC Championship game, 2 games that anything can happen. In the playoffs, we've seen that time and time again. I mean, it's a little concerning because obviously it's, 7-4, and you look at playoff teams are 0-2 against the Saints. They lost to the Rams. That was a closer game than the Saints game, obviously, but they lost 2 to the Saints, lost to the Rams, and then obviously we talked about beating the Packers. So, is this a real problem? Is there a ceiling on this team? I guess I'll let you take the floor. Say whatever you want about this team, what you saw, what you didn't like, because obviously this is your thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get distracted by the 27-24 final score. This game wasn't the Rams by far and away outplayed Tampa Bay. They had a lot of luck went Tampa Bay's way. There were some bad pass interference calls in that first quarter that benefited us. And there was even that weird play where it was kind of I don't know. incomplete/fumble plays are always so confusing for me. I don't know if you want to call it a fumble or incomplete, but either way, we were lucky that was incomplete. That could have easily ended up being a fumble had things just happened a little bit differently. So, and that would have been a touchdown. This just felt like LA was a much better team. And, we even had a couple gifts from Jared Goff, and one of them wasn't even his fault. It was just a miscommunication. And the other was a good play, but also a missed throw. We get this couple of gifts, and it's not going well, is what I'll say. I just think Brady was terrible this game, and we've now had 5 losses, and all of them have been bad. There hasn't been a single loss where you say, well, they lost, but that's optimistic. There hasn't been a single one, or 4 losses, I mean.
Yeah. No, I can agree with all that. I think the Brady thing, in this game and, the couple of Saints game has been frustrating. You've seen them go against these really good defenses. And, it's telling that Brady's good games are not against the Saints, Bears, Saints, and Rams. Because those are 3 of the best defenses in football. Yeah. I think the Rams are really good. I've said this all season, and I continue to think that they're really impressive. But at the same time, I still feel like you look at the talent on this Tampa Bay team and say the losses that they have are an indictment on what they're doing. I think that everyone's looked at this defense and said, yeah, it's really talented. It's really fast. When it's clicking, it's really hard to beat. But at the same time, how long is it going to take I said this the last time they lost, how long is it going to take for Todd Bowles to realize that a 10, 12-yard route is killer? It's killing this defense every time when a guy just goes for 10 to 12 yards. It kills this defense every time, and Cooper Kupp had like 10 catches by halftime because of it. I think that is going to be a problem for the defense. I think the offense continues to not to click. It seems like any time outside of when Ronald Jones breaks a 98-yard run, it seems like almost any time Byron Leftwich calls a running play, it's just a negative play on this offense. It looks like it's going for 2 yards and just setting up a 3rd and long. It seems like that happens way too much for this team. For how many, it's almost like they're not threatened by having Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, and Chris Godwin on the field, which should be a problem.
Yeah, and I mean, again, you can try to blame the loss of Ali Marpet, which I do think hurts, but you can't blame it on all of that. Also, thank you to Selmazoo Black in the chat for the super chat. We appreciate that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'll shift gears a little bit. I could go all day on Tampa Bay. I just think that this is a weird team. And it kind of just feels like with Tampa Bay, they almost remind me a little bit of, they're a more talented team than last year's Browns, but they remind me a little bit of last year's Browns, just in the sense that it was almost like, let's just acquire as much talent as possible. We're not trying to fit it into some certain scheme. And sometimes that's difficult. But yeah, the Rams are awesome. The Rams are really good. And, I think we've both been kind of on this before a lot of other people were. Last week I said they're the best defense in football. I stand by that. I thought that even with a couple, 10 of the 24 points they gave up were directly off of turnovers. This was a really good defensive showing. Jalen Ramsey can maybe be in the defensive player of the year conversation. Although, again, fans know my thoughts on who the corners winning defensive player of the year. But yeah, one more thing before we get into the picks. Again, super chat, Super Bowl favorite. I think I'd go Kansas City Chiefs, right?
Chiefs.
Yeah.
Chiefs.
All right. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, if you want me to pick an NFC team, gun to my head, I guess you have to pick New Orleans. That's almost a safe pick. Mm-hmm. Like you just imagine Breeze coming back for playoffs, and maybe the rest helps him a little bit. I just feel like that's a safe pick. I also really, we both just said it. We both really like the Rams. That's not just a trendy pick because they're good. We've been saying it all season. And I mean, I'm still not going to count out teams like Seattle and Tampa who have an obscene amount of talent from being able to make it. I just think that their weaknesses are really showing. And I think the Rams and the Saints are safer picks out of the NFC. And I mean, I think the Chiefs and Steelers have proven that they're head and shoulders above everybody else in the AFC. I think the AFC is really good. I just think that there's 2 teams that are very, very good, and then a lot of pretty good teams after that. You probably have 7 good teams, and then 2 great teams that are head and shoulders above everybody else.
Yeah, good stuff. Also, again, I'll talk about I'm a little bit higher on Seattle, too, after their game against Arizona. So I might not put them in there. But yeah, I think those are the big 3 in the NFC right now would be the Saints, Rams, and Seahawks, and maybe Packers as well. But again, tough loss. We'll get into the picks now. So Kyle, big comeback you've had. I think you were down a good amount at a certain point, but you've clawed your way back. The possession arrow is on me, so that means that I will be going next. So I feel pretty good. I will be selecting first for the first time in what seems like ages. So I'm actually going to be giving you the first game this week. How does that sound?
That sounds great. I'm ready to go.
Yes. Who are got another super chat? Hey, if you want to pay us money, we'll keep answering questions. Who won't see them coming? I believe this is like who are some contenders who you might not see coming. I mean, yeah, you could say the Raiders. I'm just trying to think about this right now. Maybe the Giants could go on some sort of run. Probably Green Bay. I think that would be the biggest surprise.
Arizona's my team.
Arizona. Yeah, I can see that.
That'd be my sleeper. I mean, Kyler Murray, I think, can win a lot of playoff games. And weirdly, have the Ravens almost become a sleeper at this point? Like,
yeah, I almost thought about Ravens saying that.
Yeah.
I think that'll be my sleeper. Ravens. How about that?
Yeah. I mean, that's honestly like it. Looking at the team right now, it would be kind of shocking to see the Ravens in the Super Bowl. But if they find their 14-2 team and manage to turn this thing around, I think that's a team that could also be in contention. Because we know that the ceiling on that team is probably one of the best two teams in football, but we haven't seen that since week 16 of last year. I do like some people here talking about the Colts. I think the Colts, I don't even know if they're a sleeper, though. I've talked about the Colts all year.
Yeah, well, here, let's talk about the Colts. I'm going to give you them for my first game. I'm giving you Titans Colts. Who do you got?
All right, right after I said I love the Colts all year, I'm picking the Titans. I think that the biggest thing that's missing right here, I think this Colts defense is really good. I think it's the best defense in football. I think right now, statistically, the Balls are the number one pass defense in the league, but a lot of that is because they're winning a lot of games. So that's part of the ones where stats misleading because people aren't throwing on the balls because they're ahead by halftime. But anyway, so I think the Colts are the best defense in the league. There's one thing that I have an issue with. It seems like DeForest Buckner might not play, and if he's not playing, I mean, I think he's maybe one of the most underrated defenders in the league. I mean, it's telling that San Francisco had the best defense in the NFL last year, and then he goes to Indianapolis, and Indianapolis has the best defense in the NFL this year. And while I think teams have struggled to run the ball, I think a lot of that has to do with DeForest Buckner being there. And if he's not there, I don't trust this run defense as much. And I think Tennessee is going to be able to get the ball moving. It's hard to trust some of Tennessee's things, whether it's special teams, defense, but I can't just imagine that the punter's going to shit himself 2 Colts games in a row, right?
I mean, we have to start talking about the Titans special teams because it's been abysmal and it's not acceptable. And it's not just missing field goals. It's been abysmal all over the place. And you have to focus on that and you have to get better on that. Obviously, it's hard to do it now, but you can still improve on that. You can put different guys in there if you have to. It just hasn't been good. And yeah, I mean, we can talk about this is a weird game by when the Titans beat the Colts. And I've kind of been slow on coming around to Indianapolis. I've accepted they're a good team. I don't think I've quite accepted how good they were up until a couple weeks ago. And then I kept picking against them simply because they were playing teams I just thought were better. And it seems like, last week against Green Bay, it's a great example. I feel like Green Bay is the better team. In my head, they seem like the better team. And Indianapolis finds a way to win. But there's something to be said about just finding a way to win. And they get these breaks. They get these turnovers. They get special teams things happening. And on the other hand, for the Titans, they're the complete opposite. They have so many games. I still think back to Houston last year when everyone was talking about how good the Titans were. They were red hot with Tannehill, and they lose in that game partially because of a weird 100-yard pick six in it. And they just seem to find a way to sometimes lose these certain games. These are both good teams. I wouldn't be shocked if either one happens. I actually had Indianapolis in this one, but I didn't love it. I just said, I'm going to give it to you first.
Yeah, I think this game's just about as big of a toss-up as it gets. We've both loved these teams for the division, basically since the offseason, and they've proven to be above and beyond, way ahead of the Texans, who are the only other consideration, I think, because of Watson. And yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that we have to acknowledge too is that we've said it all year with Phillip Rivers is, you're scared to pick Phillip Rivers, But at the same time, if he's going to continue to play like this Colts team probably does win the division because he's been awesome the last few weeks. And if he continues that, this Colts team is just tough to beat for anybody. But yeah, once again, I think that the Titans offense started to find its groove again this past week and got some things done. I think it had taken a slight step back, and that kind of exhausted the defensive and special teams issues. But now that they kind of look to find their ground again this last week in their win, I think having Henry, having Tannehill looking pretty good, and Buckner being out, I think that's just too much right now, and I'm going to take the Titans.
Yeah, no, what you see about Buckner makes a lot of sense to me. So I don't hate this selection for you at all. I mean, yeah, both of these teams are good. I actually think the Titans defense has gotten better these past few weeks, which is promising to see. We kind of all made fun of Chicago for getting basically shut down by their defense. But then I watched the tape and I was like, you know what? They actually played well, and it seems like they've gotten better. It's still not the strength of their team, but it doesn't have to be. They do a lot well on offense. Their offense is awesome. We all know that. And for Indianapolis, yeah, I mean, this team looks like a Super Bowl contender when Rivers plays well. He just hasn't played well every game. So we'll see what happens. All right. Unless you have more you want to add, we can move on to your first pick.
We can move on. I got a game here that, the winner of this is probably taking a significant lead in the division here as we enter, I think it's week 12. Are we in week 12? Yeah. I got the balls at the Cowboys Thanksgiving. This is I think, very interesting one. I missed both of these games because, like I said, I was in Houston watching the Patriots lose. But, who do you got here? 2 3-win teams.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's crazy to think this game was the thumbnail image that I went with. Like, I was thinking about it, and I'm like, this is kind of a big game. And I didn't want to go with there's a couple others I could have chose, but it really is. I'm going to go with Dallas here. I predicted 2 weeks ago Dallas was going to win the division, and you all laughed. And who's laughing now? No, I mean, that wasn't actually that crazy of a pick. But, I mean, I think Dallas is the better team. I think Dallas has the better, again, like you said, a lot of Washington's stats are misleading because teams are running the clock out in the fourth quarter. And I think the Cowboys are better with Andy Dalton. I think the Cowboys still have the better quarterback in this game. They definitely have the better weapons in this game, and their defense has played better. It's still not great, but it hasn't been as terrible as it was early. It sucks that there's only 2 Thanksgiving games because this one is probably going to be the best one. But I'm going to go Dallas.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with everything you said. It was nice to see Ezekiel Elliott kind of get going. This has been a really rough year for him. I liked what I saw at offense for the Cowboys. From the little bit of tape that I watched, it seemed like check down Alex was back for the balls there last week. Really tough game for that one. That was obviously weird with the whole Joe Burrow thing, but they ended up pulling it out. I mean, it just seems like the defensive line that we've talked about potentially being awesome for this Washington team to win this has to get like 3 or 4 sacks, right? And just not even 3 or 4 sacks. They have to be like 3 or 4 drive altering sacks that like flip the game in their favor, flip the field position in their favor. Because I just feel like if a team gets to 20 to 24 points, it's going to be tough for Washington to win. This team doesn't manufacture a lot of points.
Yeah, and one thing that's worth mentioning is we now have Zach Martin for the Cowboys. Right tackle Zach Martin, he's back and he's playing right tackle, which is very interesting, and it's worked out well. It worked out well last week. So, their line is getting healthier. The Cowboys, they're not going to get Dak back, but they've gotten healthier outside of that to some degree. And I do think that they're a decent team. I just think they're better than Washington. But this is a good pick for you because you can easily see Washington finding a way to win. It's just, have Alex Smith play well against a defense that's been very spotty at times. And, your defense, again, it's still good. The stats are inflated. It's still a good defense. And just hope you can shut down Dallas, at least decently well.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you did say the defense or the offensive line is getting healthy for the Cowboys. It still has tied for the 7th most sacks in football right now. And Washington does still have one of the higher pressure rates in the NFL right now. So there is a pretty good matchup you could talk about here. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. I would probably lean Dallas just because, I think Zeke gets enough yards in this one to get this done. But I do feel like it's more of a toss-up than people think.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the winner after tomorrow, the winner of the division will be a 4-7, either Balls or Cowboys. Crazy stuff. Let's move on. I'm going to give you a game. This game is an interesting one. The line was really what stuck out to me. Minnesota is -4 in this game. They're 4-point favorites against Carolina. Who do you have in this one?
Uh, you know, I almost just feel like I have to pick Minnesota. I just feel like the ceiling of Minnesota, I just feel like weirdly the ceiling of Minnesota is just higher than Carolina. Carolina is just a really solid team, and they continue to prove that. It's hard to get a gauge on them because they win games that you look at the talent and you just continue to say, especially with McCaffrey out, oh, they shouldn't probably win this game. And then they pull out some random win, or they pull out like a 5-point loss because they're solid in every game. But I just think with the way Thielen, with the way Justin Jefferson's played this season, with Dalvin Cook, I think there's enough talent on this Vikings team to win.
Yeah, I don't know. I've made this comparison a few times this season. I feel like I'm Ben Wyatt in Parks and Recreation, and the Vikings are little Sebastian. Like I don't get this Vikings love. All of a sudden, I went to bed one day and woke up, and everyone loved the Vikings. I don't understand. Like, they're the team they've been all season. They just lost to Dallas. I just think Carolina's a better team, and I think Carolina struggled in closing some games out, but they just shut out Detroit. Granted, it's Detroit, but I don't think Minnesota is on a very different level from Detroit. I think Carolina is a better team, and I think they're going to beat up on teams when the talent level is close. And I do think the talent level is relatively close in this game. Now, one thing I find interesting, I told this to Cam on last week's show. I'm not sure if you heard this, but so Kirk Cousins, he's 5 times this season had over 10 yards per attempt. That's by far more than anybody else. He's currently leading the league in yards per attempt. Where did this come from? Gunslinger Kirk Cousins. I mean, talk about a stat that you wouldn't believe if you didn't read it.
Well, I think a lot of it, like I said, has to do with Justin Jefferson and his ability. Part of the reason why I was concerned about the passing game and Kirk Cousins this season, which I still don't love a lot of what Kirk Cousins has done this year. He's the definition of average. You don't love him, but you don't. It's hard to hate him sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But like you just look at this, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4 games where Justin Jefferson has over 20 yards of reception. Then the other ones, there's only 2 games this season where he has under 10 yards of reception. I was concerned about this team without Diggs being able to stretch the field, but they got this guy who's just all of a sudden this awesome deep threat in Justin Jefferson, who already looks like he's one of the best receivers in the league. I think having a guy like that has just completely changed this offense where they're able to stretch the field more, and maybe they've opened up a little bit more without Stefanski. Who knows? But at the same time, I think that's just been a huge thing for them, and I think that's still kind of why I'm going to pick them because, while I think Carolina is the more disciplined, smarter, and better, or can be better football team, I just think that the ceiling of this Vikings team right now is higher and that they can win it because they have this talent on offense.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that Minnesota does so well is they run the ball and they get those play actions. And what Jefferson is probably at his best at is running over the middle and using his route running to get open on play action. He does a great job at that. And so that's kind of what him and Cousins have done so well this season. And that's how they've gotten some yards. On the flip side, though, I just don't see how, again, these cornerbacks for Minnesota have not been great. And I don't see how they're going to be able to stop all of the weapons Carolina has. I just think this is the Carolina victory. But, I mean, I don't know. I think if the talent level is close, I'm giving it to Matt Rule here.
Yeah. I mean, I can't fault either argument. I think I did think that there was 3 kind of toss-up games for me, and I think there's the rest of the games the rest of the way I feel a little more comfortable picking one side or the other. I think this is the 3rd toss-up game. I think it's going to be interesting how these 2 teams balance. But I do think one thing that I've noticed is after his crazy good start to the year, I haven't seen as much Robbie Anderson, and I think they're going to need a little more from him this game, because I think they really need to attack these corners, like you said, just about on every opportunity they can get. I think they need a little more out of him and Curtis Samuel to get going. But, I mean, they've both been really good this year, so you can't fault it. I just think that, I trust the Minnesota weapons more right now.
Yep. All right. Well, we'll see what happens. Should be a high scoring game, I think, either way.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Your turn to give me a game.
Uh, I'll go with this one. Two teams that I think, depending on what game you show up, you either think that they can be pretty good or just really bad. I'll go Houston at Detroit.
Okay. Yeah. This one was. I have one game above this still on the board, but yeah, I'm right there with you. This is an interesting one. Again, it's hard, right? Because I do think that there's no doubt about it. The Lions are the more complete football team. Houston has obviously I think they have a quarterback advantage, even with Stafford. I think Watson's better. I do. On the other side, I also think that their coaching advantage is better. I think that Romeo Crennel, I trust him more than I trust Matt Patricia right now. I'm going to go with Houston. I like what Watson can do. I think that underrated, the receiving core has been very good. It's not what it would be with Hopkins, and they've always struggled in the red zone at times, but they've kind of found themselves in that area. And I was so impressed with what Watson did last week. And I was so disappointed with what the Detroit Lions did. And I don't get how you're playing for anything other than your next paycheck if you're a Lions player.
Yeah. I saw the stat that someone posted that Deshaun Watson has like 88% of his team's total yardage on offense, which is just absurd. Like, I've never seen anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even have to see the game. Like I said, I missed a lot, but I didn't even have to see the game to say that this was a Matt Patricia special. 3.4 yards per play is just utterly ridiculous. That's just unacceptable. I think this Panthers defense is good in discipline, but there's not any it's not like you're going up against Aaron Donald. 3.4 yards per play you shouldn't coach football after that.
No.
I just think it's ridiculous. I'd probably lean Houston just for the Watson factor, but at the same time, you could see Matt Stafford against his Texans secondary going for 375 yards. I feel like it wouldn't be shocking to see him hit 400 even. I just watching that Patriots game in the building last week, even when Cam missed throws, there was guys open with 10 yards of space. And there's a few plays where a guy was just on his own, whether it was Damiere Byrd or Jacoby Myers or somebody was just open with 10 yards of space. And guess what? I think Marvin Jones and Kenny Golladay are better than Damiere Byrd and Jacoby Myers. I think if you give those guys 10 yards of space, they're going to get 50. They're going to get 50 yards. I could see this Detroit offense going for 400 yards through the air because this Texans secondary is just so bad. But I don't know. That also is putting too much reliance. I hate picking Matt Patricia games. I hate picking them so much. That's why I'm giving them to you. Yeah. So I gave this one to you.
Oh, right. Yeah, right. I got confused. I got excited for a second. No. I see Carrion in the chat says 400 yards after being shut out. Brave balls, Kyle. Brave balls you have. No, we talked about the balls already. No. It is. I do feel like, the Texans secondary isn't good, but when the Lions are going to run the ball on every first and second down, it might not matter as much. I just think that there's so much things wrong with this team. I don't know. Texans are a lot of, one thing I talked about last week too was how Watson did what he did with no running game. They rushed for under 2 yards per attempt, and he still had nearly 10 yards per attempt. That was one of the best performances I've seen all year. All right. Yeah. I don't have.
I have one more question about this game.
Okay.
So just hypothetically, because we both don't like Matt Patricia and think he's going to get fired. Mm-hmm. If you're a head coach candidate, which of these jobs would you rather have?
Out of these two teams?
Yes.
I think I go Detroit. And the one thing, I think Detroit purposely probably didn't love a lot of their options. And so they said, we'll just keep Patricia for another year. So that way we can sort of show loyalty. And I do feel like the Lions would show loyalty. They're not going to, get rid of me after 1 year like the Cardinals would. And I think they have a lot of talent that you can work with. I don't love a lot of their contracts. I think there's some things you'd have to work around. But the Texans traded away their best receiver for a bad contract. So, they don't have picks. They're just, I don't know. Maybe Houston, you could argue just because they have the quarterback and you can work around more. But I
It's
actually
so
think this.
hard. Like this
Yeah,
Texans thing, it's so hard to get a gauge for because the cupboard is barren, but it's like you have a huge like fancy 3-course dinner and you're
mhm.
missing all of the ingredients besides like the $100 steak. You have the $100 steak and you're missing everything else that goes into the dinner. Because having Watson is just such a huge advantage because you don't know if you're going to get a guy like Watson in the next 3 or 4 years. Although I like Stafford, who knows how much longer he's going to be there.
Yeah, no, and we should also say, I mean, Stafford has had a bad season this year. Like, I'm not saying that he's been like a bad quarterback. I'm just saying for his standards, this has been one of his worst years. So I mean, I think part of it is just look at what's around him. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think just the concern for Houston is that you don't want to get there. You have no picks, so you're basically the same team next year. You can't win games, and then the following year, you basically have to win that year, or 2 years of bad seasons. You're going to be out of there. So I think that's why I'd go Lions. But yeah, interesting question. All right, I'm going to give you a game now. I'm going to give you Ravens Steelers.
Pittsburgh. I mean,
Yeah.
I bumped this game a little down because who knows if this game happens Sunday? We talked about it before the show. Who knows how many of the Ravens starters are going to be able to play this week? Because of with the game being moved to Sunday. Who knows with that? The only reason I'd pick the Ravens right now is like you kind of just say they have to win this. It's like they have to get a game under their belt that they really need. That's the only reason I can logically pick the Ravens right now. I think the Steelers are a better football team. They're a more complete football team. I like this team in the passing game. I like this team on run defense. I like this team on pass defense. I like this team on special teams. Justin Tucker's still there, but I like everything about the Steelers team, just about everything on this team more than the Ravens right now. I don't love this offense. It's baffling to me how much it's flipped. That Greg Roman looked like one of the best coordinators in the league to he's probably going to be out of a job next year. I think it's absolutely baffling to me that they haven't been able to adapt to a lot of teams starting to figure them out. I don't trust this Ravens team. I don't. I'm taking the Steelers.
Yeah. I talked about that last week as well, or last episode a little bit as well, of the Greg Roman wins assistant coach of the year, could be fired next year. Every now and then you get a coach of the year who gets fired the same year they win it. It's a little bit different with the assistant coaches. Usually it goes in the opposite direction. Yeah, I mean, the reason I gave you this game so high is I feel like pretty much all of these games, I feel pretty confident I know where they're going to go from here on out. I think we've pretty much gotten all of the games I'm kind of up in the air about. There's a clear favorite in pretty much every other game here, I think. And I just feel like for Baltimore, like you said, this is a cornered animal game. They need this win, and if they can get it, they come a different team. And the chat pretty much universally said Steelers. I think part of it is because, Baltimore, they have had the COVID thing. We don't know how many starters are going to be out. We don't know how bad it's going to look for them. The game getting postponed does definitely help them and help guys potentially get healthy. And I just think that let's not forget that Baltimore basically outplayed Pittsburgh the last time. Lamar Jackson threw a bad pick six. He threw had a couple of bad turnovers. And Pittsburgh's offense got basically nothing going against Baltimore's defense that game. And I see no reason why it couldn't happen again. So I think Baltimore had some more on the line in this game. They're going to be more desperate. I think they match up well. I think the Steelers are the better team. So that's why I gave it to you.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that. The Ravens have to be desperate at this point. I think that's the biggest thing. And the Ravens have to feel a little bit of desperation. This is a team we both picked to win the Super Bowl, and we just talked about potential sleepers for the Super Bowl. And we both mentioned the Ravens. Well, guess what? The Ravens aren't in the playoffs right now. If the season ended today, the Ravens aren't going to make it. And if they lose this one, they're 6-5. And with the way some of these other teams around them play in the playoff picture, they're going to be the 9 seed. They're going to be 2 games. They're going to be potentially 2 games out of the 5 or 6 seed, and a game behind Vegas and Miami for the 7 seed potentially. Everything has to go against them. But if they're falling a game behind these guys, I think it's a huge problem. They have to feel some sort of desperation at this point.
Yeah, and it's what's interesting about and on the other side for Pittsburgh, you have to be feeling a little bit desperate as well because Kansas City won't stop losing, and you're in a situation right now where 15-1 might not get you a bye week, which is absurd. In fact, you're in a situation right now that 16-0 might not give you a bye week because if games get postponed, they could end up running the table and then having to play in wildcard weekend because they could add an extra team. NFL has said they could still potentially do that. So that would be, they would really not be happy. I know Pittsburgh fans, one thing we've probably talked about as well, is a lot of Pittsburgh fans are upset about the fact that this game has gotten postponed due to COVID as well. They feel like they already had to change their schedule around for Tennessee. Now they're changing around for Baltimore. But, I mean, I feel like we're in weird times right now. There's no precedent.
Every NFL team has got it under their head that anything could change in a second. The Raiders, the Raiders have essentially not played their full roster since like week 1. I can't remember a week all season where the Raiders haven't played with their full roster due to COVID. I think it stinks for the Steelers that they have to deal with this again, where it's another opponent causing them problems. But you can't punish the Ravens at the end of the day for potentially a guy going to the grocery store and getting sick the next day. There's so many variables to COVID that it's hard to make these teams forfeit or something like that because it's hard to gauge how this happened. It's not like the Ravens broke a protocol. Something random could have just happened and a guy got sick and it spread around the team. There's not much you could really do about that as the NFL. I think all these teams are just learning, hey, we have to adjust on the fly. Anything can change. The NFL is just going to plow ahead no matter what because that's what the NFL does. With some disregard to human safety and their players' safety. Yeah. They're just going to keep plowing ahead. So,
yeah, I mean, that's how it is. Yeah, but we'll see. I mean, you know what? Play like a champion. Don't make excuses. We'll see if they can still get that victory Sunday. All right, your turn to give me a game.
All right. I think I know which way you're going on this one. I just think this is the next best game. Kansas City at Tampa. Go ahead and pick your team. Pick against your team.
Exactly. I mean, listen. Oops, wrong one. Listen. The Bucs aren't as good as the Chiefs. They're just not. Kansas City has a better offense. They have a better defense. I'm just trying to think about it. I feel like Kansas City, as if Ali Marpet isn't back, Kansas City is going to once again get significant pressure on Brady, which is not going to be very good. They have a secondary that can make plays. I think that on the flip side, the biggest way to beat Tampa Bay has been with speedy receivers. Kansas City has a couple of those. So unless Tampa Bay is going to be able to get pressure with 4, which you have to do against Kansas City, which they really haven't been able to do this season, they blitz a ton. I just think this is Kansas City is a better team. I think Tampa Bay matches up poorly. I think Kansas City wins by 30. I think this is the blowout.
Yeah, we saw this game almost. We saw this game when they played Baltimore earlier in the season. And coincidentally, the Ravens are number 1 in blitz rate in the NFL, and the Buccaneers are number 2 in blitz rate in the NFL. And as much as I loved how much my Antoine Winfield Jr. prediction from the beginning of the draft, Antoine Winfield's going to pan out, as much as I love him, this Buccaneers secondary isn't even the Ravens secondary. I just think that there's, like you said, this team, Todd Bowles isn't going to be able to contain himself. He's going to blitz. And we've seen what happened, like I said, with that Ravens game, how that's going to work out because it's not. Mahomes, I think, is just going to pick them apart. I'm not as good. I think Tampa Bay is going to be able to move the ball some. I think that they may be able to score points, but I don't think they're going to be able to score points at the rate Kansas City is. I don't think they're going to be able to do that. And I think Kansas City, I could see this game being like a 38-28 game, but I just don't see Tampa Bay keeping up with them.
Yeah, well, and what's so tough about Kansas City too, and what makes them such a good team, is that even if they make a couple of mistakes, the way you have to beat them is so significantly higher than the way they have to beat you. I mean, you pretty much have, and I think you have to outscore them too. I think really what it comes down to is you have to score. Like, think about what happened last week against, when they played Las Vegas. You look at Las Vegas and they score 32 points. And everyone says after the game, well, man, if only Aguilar caught those couple of catches, then maybe they could have won. Like, it's still putting blame on the offense because you pretty much have to put up 40 to beat Kansas City. That's the only way a team has beaten them so far is when Las Vegas put up 40. And I think this is a good matchup for Kansas City's defense. I don't think Tampa Bay puts up 30.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can agree with all that. I think that like you said, I think just about everything you could have hoped for, I think besides one turnover, I think there's just about everything I hoped for went right for the Raiders. And they still ended up giving the ball to Mahomes back with 1:40 left. And it was basically over from there. Yeah, I just think that that's a bad matchup, like you said. I don't think this defense is going to be able to do a whole lot. I would pick the Chiefs pretty comfortably as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. I feel like I've been like the one like person who's seen through Tampa Bay. I feel like I correctly called them. Where there's been really, I feel like two big camps. There's been this Bucks are Super Bowl contenders, and Bucks are not even going to make the playoffs. Terrible team. They're a playoff team. They are, but I mean, honestly, are the Bucks better than the Raiders? I don't think so. I think the Raiders are a better team. I legitimately think that we're kind of a wild card, maybe one playoff win team, and I'm happy with that. Break our playoff streak. I'll take that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. I think that's completely fair. I think if you catch this Buccaneers team on the right night in the right matchup, they look like one of the best teams in football. I think that a lot of that is kind of matched up based, though. I think they have the potential to wreak havoc on a team because the way their defense plays can cause a lot of teams problems. And I think that there's enough talent on the offense that when it's clicking, it can look awesome as well. But we haven't seen both of that happen a whole lot this season.
Yeah, well, that's kind of my problem is, Bruce Arians' stubbornness has gotten talked about a bit. And it really does seem like he's going to just play his game. And if it doesn't work out, well, he's still going to just keep playing it the same way. And that gets us in trouble. So we basically just have to already walk in with a good matchup, and we don't here. So I think Kansas City.
Yep.
All right. We're making horrible time. I just looked at the clock. So we'll try to get through some of these games. All right. So my turn to give you a game. You gave me my team. I'll give you yours. How about Arizona taking on New England? Another surprising line, 2.5 points. You'd think that would be a bit higher. Who do you got in this one?
This Patriots team is so frustrating. I think they definitely play to their level of competition, and they're not good enough to play that sort of like with that sort of tendencies because if they win the Texans and Broncos team games, this is a team battling for a playoff spot. And those are probably winnable games. But then they show up and play, even with Canadian Football League level quarterbacks, they competed with the Chiefs for 3.5 quarters. And they beat the Ravens. They upset them. Now, if the weather was normal weather, not New England weather during the winter, is that game different? Maybe. But at the same time, they ended up – I didn't think it was a fluke that New England won that game. I still feel like I got to pick Arizona, though. I'm more comfortable with picking Arizona. I think we've now seen New England against a couple mobile quarterbacks this season. I think they limited Baltimore because they weren't afraid of Lamar Jackson throwing the football, but then they looked awful against Mahomes and Watson because they can throw the football. If they continue to rush three and not look, Laramie Tunsil was out last week. Laramie Tunsil was out last week for the Texans, and they didn't get any pressure. They didn't get anybody after Watson. If they do that against Kyler Murray and let him run around with all kinds of time, Kyler Murray's going to go nuts. I just don't think there's any chance. I'm taking the Cardinals. I think Kyler Murray just picks them apart. Even if Gilmore comes back and does a good job against Hopkins, I think there's too many weapons on Arizona.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta be honest. I didn't realize Tunsil was out last week, and I watched that. I watched that game. That's embarrassing, quite frankly, because they really struggled in that one. Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. I do think New England was the better team than Houston. It was just sometimes a great quarterback is able to make enough of a difference. Sometimes they aren't. But yeah, I mean, I guess the pathway to beat Arizona for New England, and I'm assuming why this score is, or why the line is the way it is I do feel like if New England can run the ball against a run defense that has been known to give up some points, and they can play good defense in the secondary where they still do have physical corners who can make tackles. And that's what Arizona wants you to do at times. They could potentially find a way to pull it off. Seems very unlikely though.
Well, I mean, I think this run defense or this run offense has the potential just about every week to be really good. But at the same time, like they gave Damian Harris 11 carries. Now, a lot of that's probably matchup based because they fell behind against Houston, and Houston's secondary isn't good. But at the same time, if you like Damian Harris so much, which I think a lot of people in New England do and a lot of fans do, why is he getting 11 carries once again in a big game? And they're now going to lose their change of pace back in Rex Burkhead, who's out, which I think is going to hurt a little more than people think. I don't know how much trust I have in this team being able to run the football consistently. I think Harris can get going, but at the same time, I don't know if that's going to be enough.
Yeah, and for Arizona, again, the playoffs for the NFC, it seems like unless Chicago goes on a run, we've pretty much got our 7 teams. But if Arizona wants to try it, really, I feel like at this point, if you're not going to get the 1 seed, the 5 seed is what you're going for. You want to try and get that 5 seed. So if Arizona is going to try to get the 5 seed, this is one they got to win.
Yeah. No, I agree. So.
Okay. We can move on. Let's talk about another divisional matchup between a team that was disappointed, and part of that was due to injuries for the 49ers.
You're jumping the gun here.
Am I?
It's my pick. Yeah.
Oh, my bad. I don't know why I've done it twice now. Okay.
Well, it's okay. That game was on my list too for next. So I'm giving you 49ers Rams.
I don't know why. I don't know why I've done that twice now. Yeah, I think I might have done my notes weird or something. But anyways, I'll try to go plow ahead here. Good to see that we're both at least on this one. I'm going to go with the Rams here. Obviously, I'm a big fan of what the LA Rams have done. San Francisco, this is a divisional game, so anything can happen. That's why it's a good pick that we both tried to make. I think that the one thing I have to say though is for the Rams, I do feel like Jared Goff has kind of gotten the better of everybody who's gotten the better of him in the past, with the exception of Flores. Flores still got the better of him, but last year he turned the ball over 4 times against Tampa Bay. Also threw for like 500 yards on like 65 attempts. That was just a wild game. And also he was able to beat Chicago. 49ers beat him last year. Maybe they can find a way to pull this. Maybe they can find a way to pull it off. Never count out Kyle Shanahan, especially in a division matchup. But the Rams are just the better team, especially with all of San Francisco's injuries.
Yeah. I think that's 100% on. I think that the Rams are clearly a better team. I would pick them too. I think that with Shanahan and what he's capable of, I'm more comfortable putting San Francisco up here as an underdog more than some of the other underdogs on the list below them. Because that Shanahan factor always seems like a real thing, and they were able to upset Los Angeles earlier in the season, but they're just missing too many guys, I think. Even if Deebo Samuel comes back, which I heard was questionable, I just don't think there's enough bodies left in San Francisco to make this a game.
Yeah, I agree. Again, listen, the thing about Jared Goff is he actually kind of reminds me a bit of, I think, him and Jimmy Garoppolo. I never really put that comparison together, but you can make some comparisons between them. When he doesn't turn the ball over, he's great. He is known to do that from time to time, though. And when he does, they tend to look ugly. So he needs to work on that to some degree. And again, that's maybe your pathway to getting a win here, is if Goff is able to turn the ball over a couple times. But honestly, again, the Rams defense is awesome. This is a really good division. They're a really good team. I feel like these are 4 playoff teams if they're healthy. And the only reason there will only be 3 of them is because the 49ers got hurt.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, I'm picking the Rams. I continue to pick the Rams. I think that we both said it. They're a legit Super Bowl contender with the way this defense is playing.
Yeah, I think I have them at number 2 right now. I think I have in the NFC. I still have Saints 1. I have them ahead. Let's move on. Now I will go and I will give you a game. I got it right now. We're on the right path here. I'll give you 2 guys who you were not very high on coming into this season. Justin Herbert playing Josh Allen. The Chargers taking on the Bills. Bills 5.5-point favorites. Who do you got?
I still feel like this is pretty easily Bills. I think the Chargers have potential for upset, but I don't trust them late in games, and I don't think that they're going to be able to slow down Josh Allen enough, despite having a really good defensive line and I think a pretty good defense. I trust the Bills right now more. I'm picking the Bills. I don't think this is a hot take, obviously.
Yeah. Also, I just almost screwed up my notes again, which meant I would have tried to give you the next game as well. So I now know what I'm doing wrong. I'm on the right path to not do it again. back to the football. Yeah, I mean, the way that the Chargers win, right, is they let Herbert cook. He's able to go out there and put up points on this Bills defense, and maybe Josh Allen turned the ball over a couple times. Again, there's a pathway here, right? We can see the pathway to victory. It just seems like, again, the Bills are a more talented team, and their defense has been playing better. But again, I mean, we've seen Herbert throw it all over good defenses. He's a very fun quarterback. We've also seen Herbert make mistakes too, and no one wants to talk about the mistakes. Everyone wants to talk about the goods. He still is a rookie, and while he's been great for a rookie, he's been good for a quarterback, which means that he will still make mistakes.
Yeah, and then this Chargers pass defense has been okay. I think right now they're 12th in passing yards allowed, but they only have 5 interceptions on the year, and I think a lot of it is Josh Allen's going to make mistakes that let you get interceptions. But this team doesn't create and manufacture a lot of turnovers. They're just a solid defense. And I just don't think that caters. I think Buffalo is just too explosive for a solid defense who's not able to create a lot of turnovers.
Yeah, and it's interesting at this point in time in the year where it almost feels like we just know what most of these teams are. And I almost feel like sometimes that puts us in a false sense of security where we just sort of feel like, oh, Buffalo's totally going to win because they're the better team. It doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes upsets do happen, but we do know that Buffalo is the better team. And again, for Buffalo, they're only one game ahead of Miami. They got a little bit lucky with the Miami losing to Denver. That kind of, kept them ahead. So if they're going to continue to try and stay ahead of Miami, they are going to have to start putting some wins together.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%.
This is one they have to win.
Yep. Yeah. They can't lose to bad teams. And the Chargers still, I think they're getting there, but they're still a bad team to me.
Yeah. All right. Again, we can move on. So I told you guys, not a lot of weeks are kind of obvious. Okay. I will not go. It is your turn to pick.
All right. I'll just pick this, give you this one. There's clearly a better team here. Vegas at Atlanta.
Vegas at Atlanta. Yeah, okay. I had this a couple down, but I think this is the furthest we've been apart on a game, and I still had them only 2 spots ahead. And again, this is one of those lines that there was a few this week that made me think like what the hell? How is Las Vegas -3? I don't get that. You think they'd be minus a lot more given what New Orleans did to Atlanta. Granted, Atlanta's defense has been picking it up, but I just don't trust this defense against the Raiders' offense. I think they're going to put up a ton of points. I think that on the flip side, honestly, Atlanta's offense has been disappointing after those first few weeks. But this is kind of a get-right game for their offense, at least. The Raiders' defense has had its struggles this season. It's had a couple of good games, but for the most part, it's had its struggles. So the only way that this works in Atlanta's favor is if Atlanta can sort of just outshoot Derek Carr, but I just don't know if they have the firepower, and I think that the Raiders at least have some guys who can make plays on defense. So, obviously the Raiders are the pick here, but I wouldn't be shocked if I wouldn't be completely stunned if Atlanta does it, but I think that, again, for the Raiders, you've had a tough schedule. Now you have to win the easy games.
Yeah, I almost feel like weirdly that these are 2 teams that Vegas hasn't completely figured out, because I feel like the Raiders lines have always been closer than they should be, because I don't think everyone's figured out that Raiders are a really good team. And then on the other side, I think the Falcons lines are always closer than they should be, because Vegas is terrified to have the line too big against the Falcons, because it still has, despite all of this, touchdown machine Todd Gurley, Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, and a whole litany of options on offense to throw to, that they're just terrified of putting like a 6-point line on the Falcons, because they can easily cover that with all the talent on offense. But the defense has looked better, but at the same time, it looked better last week against Taysom Hill, who may or may not really actually be a quarterback. I mean, I know he looked okay last week, but I don't know. I would pick Vegas pretty easily. I just think that, look, I do feel like that Matt Ryan and Julio Jones make this such a wild card that they can beat any opponent because they're so talented.
Well, yeah, I mean, you want to look at the games they looked better in. They played better against Carolina, held Carolina to 17, held Minnesota to 23, held Detroit to 23, and then held Carolina to 23 as well. So a lot of 23s in that. but they also did give up 27 to Denver You can say that was garbage time, but it was a one-score game in the fourth quarter, so I don't think it was. I think it was just Denver came back. So, yeah, I mean, it's still not a great defense. The Raiders are the obvious favorites. And again, sort of like we said, for Las Vegas, they're 6-4 right now. One thing I said to Cam last week is, what a shame it would be if this Raiders team doesn't make the playoffs. They've been so fun to watch. This is a team that is clearly a top 7 team in the AFC, I think. But at the end of the day, you got to win the games, and you could sort of see something happening where they kind of feel like they won when they lost to Kansas City. Everyone's talking about what a game they, almost beat the Chiefs the second time. You can almost see them maybe just sort of look past Atlanta and find a way to lose it. I think that's not impossible.
I don't think it's impossible. It's going to be so tough because, like you said, I think 3 through 9 in the AFC are all a game apart, essentially. 2 of those teams are unfortunately going to miss out that we've probably enjoyed watching this year for different reasons. They're different teams, and I do think it's going to be unfortunate that 2 of those teams do have to miss out on the playoffs if they stick with the 7-team format. But yeah, I mean, I would do everything in my being right now to make sure that the Raiders get the 7 seed. Just because I want to make sure that we have the Chiefs-Raiders one more time this season. Those games are fantastic. I want to see that game one more time. I would do everything I can to make sure that the Chiefs get the 2 seed and the Raiders get the 7 seed, so those 2 teams could play one more time. I think this team's good enough to make the playoffs. I guess if I had to make a prediction on who makes the playoffs, I probably have Miami and the team who loses the AFC South out. I just feel like
yeah. Wait, and is the third team the Raiders or is it the Ravens?
I think right now I see it going Raiders 5, Browns 6, Baltimore 7.
Okay, I see. So no team. So the Titans or Colts wouldn't make it.
Potentially, yeah. I gotta look at these schedules a little more.
The schedules matter a lot. I think Cleveland's going to make it. Their schedule is too easy, and personally, I think I'm okay with not seeing a Cleveland playoff team. I don't think they're that interesting, but I also kind of want to just see it just because the Cleveland fans deserve a playoff game, and they're a good team. They're just kind of boring. I think Miami losing that game was tough. Miami's a hard one to get a handle on, so I'll just say no for them. Also, my pick is I would not be shocked at all if it goes Cleveland, Baltimore, and then Tennessee or Indianapolis, and the Raiders are sitting out.
Yeah, I kind of thought that, but at the same time, like, the Raiders might have the easiest schedule of the bunch. They have this and the Jets, the Chargers and Broncos, which are all winnable games. I mean, a lot of these teams end up playing each other, which I think is going to make this so interesting. Tennessee plays Indianapolis, and I think they have the Browns coming up too. The Raiders play the Colts and the Dolphins. So a lot of this is going to come down to these teams playing each other. I think the Browns still play the Ravens one more time too, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, they do. The Browns play the Titans, the Ravens, and the Steelers. So I think it's going to be interesting. All 6 of these teams or whatever it is, I think the Bills are probably in. That's probably the one I feel the most comfortable about. But at the same time, I'm not in love with that team either. I think it's going to be a crapshoot down to the finish. I think this team's. If I had to pick 7 teams that I thought who were the best 7 in the AFC, the Raiders are definitely on my list for one of the best 7. It just depends on is it going to break their way.
Yeah, we'll see. I think 11-5 might not be enough to make the playoffs this year, which is crazy because there's an extra team. I mean, this has been crazy in the AFC. All right, and not to bring back bad memories for you with the 2008 Patriots.
Yeah, I had a lot of bad memories in the past 20 years.
Yeah, it's been. You have to really pinpoint, think hard about a rare bad moment for New England fans. Okay, now it is my turn. I give you a game. Why not go back to my favorite team, the Chicago Bears? I mean, listen, it's a divisional game. You can kind of see the Bears have played Green Bay tough in the past, even when Green Bay has been the better team. You can kind of see the matchup. I actually like the Bears plus 8.5 in this game, to be honest. But I'll let you go ahead. Who do you have in this one?
Yeah, I would probably take the Bears in the points. Actually, I'd probably tease this down to 2.5. I'd probably do a 6-point tease and tease the Packers down to 2.5 and win by a field goal. I mean, I'm taking the Packers. Shockingly, for anybody who's listened to my Bears takes over the past 2 months, I'm taking the Packers in this one. I think they are a way better team. I mean, it's so weird, though. So are the Packers, compared to last season, are the Packers closer to a Super Bowl this season, further from a Super Bowl this season, or about the same?
They've literally made no differences in the off. They are they could not be less different. Like they're the same exact football team, except with maybe a better backup quarterback right now and third string running back. I mean, they didn't do anything in the offseason. They haven't changed, and if you're not improving, you're getting worse. So I'll say getting worse. I mean, again, it really comes down to. And listen, I think the bright spot for Green Bay is that Marquez Valdes-Scantling. I know he had to fumble in overtime, so that's not, you're not going to feel great about that. But he's played well these past few weeks, and you can hope that he can be that burner option. You hope Lazard can get back, and that actually looks like a good offense. But I think it's a good offense because of Aaron Rodgers. But yeah, I mean, that's what it is, though. You have Aaron Rodgers, so you could still potentially. I wouldn't be shocked if this team gets to the NFC Championship game. I wouldn't be shocked if this team goes to the Super Bowl. But liking this team to beat Pittsburgh or Kansas City, it's possible. Yeah. There's a greater than 0% chance it's going to be a tough road for them. There's a lot of players I like. I like their secondary. I think that Chicago could actually be able to have a somewhat competent running game this game because Green Bay has struggled with that, even though Chicago has been one of the, it's very much the stoppable force meets the movable object in this game. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Green Bay's the favorite, but there's a chance. There is upset potential here.
Yeah, of course. This team is so weird to me. I don't know. I faded them a lot last year. I thought the 13-3 was sort of fraudulent. I've talked about this before, but at the same time, I think people felt better about the Packers this year because Rodgers looked so much better. Mm-hmm. But I can't put my finger on it with this Packers team. Is it the LaFleur-Rodgers combo? Is it Rodgers looking slightly older than he has in the past? Is it just the defense having such abominable performances? Some of the thing about this Packers team, or is it just my bias from last year and how I felt about them last season? Something about this Packers team just continues to feel so stale to me. I can't put a finger on it. There's just something I don't love about this team. I think they just feel like a classic good but not great team to me. Like you said, you wouldn't be shocked if you saw them in the Super Bowl. I think that they're a contender, but I think I would be legitimately surprised if this team makes it out of the NFC.
Well, I think sort of what I mean is I can figure out, like I could easily, it's not like for me, the reason why I say the Buccaneers aren't a Super Bowl contender is because I really have to try and figure out some sort of way that they find a way to get into the Super Bowl. Like I have to figure out like these matchups and then so what has to go right. And there's like a few of those. For Green Bay, I think that for them, they get the 1 seed, which they're still very much in play for. And then they beat a wild card team, which they should be better than. And then they probably would play like maybe if they play a Seattle or a New Orleans and they just outshoot them. It's not. I don't think it's going to happen. But if you bet any team versus the house, you're probably going to pick the house. I can vision a pathway.
Yeah, I think that's fair. That's fair. If the season ended right now, by the way, Green Bay would play Tampa Bay, who we've said all season is a terrible matchup for Green Bay. So, I mean, there's still a lot of games left to be played. Some of these playoff seeds are tight. The Bears, I think they really need this one. I've already kind of crossed off the Bears. As I've talked about before, I don't love anything about this team besides their defense. I think if the Bears lose this game, I think that they should be crossed off for everybody. I think then we pretty much know our 7 NFC teams, and there's going to be no debate that really changes it unless a quarterback gets hurt. That changes everything.
Here's the interesting thing. So Chicago, 4 of their next games, they play Detroit, Houston, Minnesota, and Jacksonville. Now, they've lost to Minnesota already, but those are games that you would suspect that they could win. They play Green Bay twice. So if they could split Green Bay and win those other 4 games, that puts them at 10 wins. So Chicago isn't out of this by where they are. They're 5-5. They don't feel like a 5-5 team. Their record is still their record. The problem for Chicago is going to be really just, can they win these games? And again, sort of like we said, it's not necessarily the top 7 teams in terms of talent that get in. It's the top 7 records. And if they can find a way to steal one of the ones against Green Bay, and beat the other 4 teams, which I think they'll at least win 2 of those games against Houston and Jacksonville. Minnesota and Detroit, it's possible, but there's a chance. It's not over yet. But again, the question is, it's like, we kind of talked about earlier with the Lions about how, like, hey, it's not over yet. But then we kind of think, well, it kind of is, because they're not good and they're not going to win these games they're favored. So that's the problem with Chicago as well.
Yeah, my feeling, you talked about their schedule. At the same time, I don't think there's a very high chance, or I definitely wouldn't bet on them splitting Green Bay. I think Green Bay, as much as I harped on them, I still think they're way better than Chicago. And I feel way more comfortable with that team. So if you look at that, that's 2 losses. That puts them at 7 losses. So the most they can get is 9 wins. I feel like Tampa Bay, after the Chiefs, win out. They play the Vikings, the Falcons twice, and the Lions. I feel comfortable with that. The Seahawks play in their final 6 games here. 3 are against NFC East opponents, and then they also play the Jets. So I don't see 7 losses there.
Well, let me cut you off, because I do think that probably every single team is going to end up with 11 wins outside of Chicago. But all that has to happen is one team struggles. Like, what if Russell Wilson gets hurt? Like, these are possible things. Yeah. And for Chicago, that's the kind of the mindset is, let's get to that 10-win spot and let's hope that gets us in.
Yeah. No, I think that's completely fair. I think that would be the deciding. Like I said, I think the only thing that changes it for Chicago, especially if they lose this game, is if a quarterback gets hurt. If a quarterback gets hurt in front of them, that opens the window up, even if they lose this, but it's a small window.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like it feels like we're so far along in the season. We still got 6 games left. We still got over a third of the season left. So there's time. All right. You give me a game.
I guess I'll go with this one, Seattle at Philly.
Okay, this is my next one. I was kind of thinking maybe I should have. It's weird, right? Philadelphia is just so annoying. They should be. They should be solid. I feel like there's enough. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on with Philadelphia. They're the most difficult team to get a grasp on. I still like their defensive line, and that's maybe their pathway to victory. Is just that they can really control the line play. But again, I just think, like, who in that secondary is going to be able to stop Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf? Wilson will find time, and I don't think they need to run the ball to have success against Philadelphia. And on the flip side, the way to beat Seattle is to throw the ball down the field, and Carson Wentz can't stop turning the ball over. So I just feel like the matchups, it just doesn't really favor Philadelphia, and it kind of does, but it just doesn't quite. So I think it's going to be it's a Seattle victory. Obviously, we think it's a Seattle victory, but the pathway is a very small one for Philadelphia.
Yeah, this could be the game that, like, saves Carson Wentz's career in Philadelphia, right? Like, I feel like he could deliver like a awesome performance in this one, and they're like, hey, let's not give up on Carson yet. I think that this is probably the game it has to happen, and weirdly could happen. I feel like this with the way the Seahawks, it's hard to trust the Seahawks defense, even though you probably trust it a little more than Carson Wentz at this point. Mm-hmm. But this is kind of the game where he could have like a 320 and 3 touchdown performance, because this past defense has proven that it can give up games like that. I don't think it's going to happen, and I'm not betting on it, but I think that that's the potential roadmap for the Eagles to get this.
Yes, I see. Humongous is not very high on the Eagles. This is his weekly 999, 999, 999 to -13 game. There's something, again, sometimes as a sports fan, you just get these weird feelings that are completely illogical. Here's my weird feeling. Can't you just kind of see Philadelphia winning this game? Can't you just see, like, Philadelphia's defense somehow shutting down Russell Wilson? It's the Monday night game. Like, the Eagles have been completely slept on. The Seahawks are talked about as this great team. Logically, it makes zero sense. I mean, logically, you have a team like Seattle, who I think their defense looked pretty promising against Arizona. but like they're just that weird thing of like this feels like an upset.
Yeah, I like I said,
You know what I
think that's
mean?
completely
You know what I mean? Or
possible.
am I just being crazy?
No, I think it's completely possible. It's so hard to like if you're looking at the NFC East, it's so hard. You know they do have that tiebreaker that's in their favor, but it's so hard to look at this Philadelphia team and be like, oh yeah, the Giants are going to beat them for the division. I think the Giants are solid, but at the same time, like you just look at the talent on this Eagles team. It's so hard to pick against a guy like Carson Wentz. It's so hard to hate on a guy like Carson Wentz. I just think as much as he struggled this season, he has the threat of a 350 game in him every week. He's that talented still, even if it's not coming through with full potential because he's shooting himself in the foot by trying to make plays out of nothing or where there's not a play there. You know, there's still so much talent in this team. It's hard to pick against sometimes.
Yeah, no, they're both inconsistent teams, so that's why you do feel like you do feel like there is the upset potential. We'll move on. Speaking of upsets, Denver pulled off probably the biggest upset of last week, playing the Saints. Who's going to win this one? Close game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to pick the Saints.
Yeah.
I think obviously the obvious pick here is the Saints. I think Denver can make this interesting. You know, I think they proved last week, as much as the Dolphins pass offense struggled at times. I think that the Denver Broncos pass defense, those guys in the secondary, Justin Simmons, when he's on and healthy, AJ Bouye, I think some of those guys can cause some problems for teams on the right week. And even though he was solid in this game as a starter, I didn't catch all of it. But even though the numbers look solid for Taysom Hill, I'm not exactly comfortable with it as a full-time quarterback. So I'm going to go with the Saints, but I think there is a possibility of an upset here.
Okay, this is interesting because let's talk about that. Let's talk about Taysom Hill because I just realized we haven't talked about that because it was announced on Thursday, the day after we do our Pick'em show, and then you obviously missed Sunday. So why don't you like the Taysom Hill? Why are you low on Taysom Hill?
Well, I mean, I've just seen I've seen enough as a sample size with him as throwing the football over his, limited NFL career to say, I don't think this guy's going to be an awesome quarterback on an every down quarterback. I don't think he's entirely accurate with his arm. And, although he was very safe, and did a very good job last week against Atlanta, I do think there's a potential that he's going to miss a few throws really badly on any given week that just fall into the other team's hands. I don't trust him fully with that. I don't trust him as an every down guy in that regard.
Well, I mean, I think the opposite. I like him a lot. I mean, I don't think that he hasn't shown me enough that I'm willing to give him like a full season of you're going to start. But I think he's shown me enough that he's a good backup. I think that, again, is he an incredible thrower of the football? I mean, I haven't seen him be poor at throwing the football. And I feel like he played well in Atlanta. The numbers would have been better if it wasn't for a couple of Michael Thomas drops. And on top of that, I think that what he does in the running game, it makes it easier for him in the passing game. And with Taysom Hill, he doesn't have to, again, we talked about the Saints offense is one that doesn't rely on their quarterback too much. So he doesn't have to be making these spectacular throws.
Yep.
Drew Brees is better, but I think I think this offense is great even with Taysom Hill.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it can be. I think, like you said, it changes a little bit of things. I think we saw that Kamara with Hill isn't going to be involved as much in the passing game, but I think this running game can be weirdly dominant. It's going to be interesting. I think that it seems like this happened again last season, but it seems like if a Breeze injury was going to happen, it came at almost the right time because the schedule almost falls in the Saints' favor here, playing the Falcons twice and the Broncos, teams that they should be able to survive without Breeze. I think if Breeze is missing, I didn't see the Breeze diagnosis for how much time he's missing, but if he misses significant time into the playoffs, then I think that Chiefs game is going to be the tell of what is the ceiling of this team without Breeze.
I believe it's 3 to 4 weeks at best. That's the best case scenario. I don't know if there's been an update since then, so it might just be. I think we're still largely up in the air, but I think for New Orleans, their hope is obviously just get back for the playoffs, but also they want the number 1 seed. So it's very interesting stuff. But I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think that I guess we'll talk a little bit about, how this is. We'll talk about the Denver Broncos for a second because I could see them winning. Again, they just pulled off this incredible upset against Miami. Their defense is awesome. Simmons should have had 2 interceptions. There was a phantom holding call that called one of his interceptions back. I do think that I think Denver's good. I don't think Denver's good, but I think their defense is good. And all their offense has to do is get a couple deep shots, which New Orleans has been prone to in the past. Maybe they could put up enough points to win. The Saints are a really good team. I think the Saints are the best team in the NFC. The Broncos are not the best team in the AFC. I know, a hot take, but I think there is a world where the Saints win this football game. I do have to say, though, for Taysom Hill, he has to stop putting the ball on the ground. He's fumbled a ridiculous. He currently is listed for 5 fumbles. I was looking it up. I believe it should be 6 fumbles because I saw him fumble it a second time last week's game. He fumbled it and then got it back real quick. Maybe the stat counters just didn't catch that one. But I mean, he's got to stop putting the ball on the ground.
Yeah, no, I agree. And this is a Broncos team that has talented enough defensive players. Although a few of them are missing, there's enough talented defensive players to take advantage of a fumble or a bad play by the offense. Yeah, I mean, I just think Justin Simmons is really good. I think that the Dolphins, it was a good win over the Dolphins. We both like the Dolphins these past few weeks, even though I think it's kind of weird gauging this Dolphins team. We'll talk about that in a second. But they ended up pulling off a win. They've had a couple really good wins on their schedule. I don't feel bad about my Broncos taking the offseason because of the injuries. And They have proven that on the right night, they can prove it even with the depleted roster. They battled the Titans. They battled the Steelers. They beat the Patriots. They beat the Dolphins. I mean, this team has potential in it. We just haven't seen it week in and week out because of the injuries and because of the inconsistencies with Locke. But this team has potential to beat a lot of good teams.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I do have to say, though, is with this Saints defensive line going up against the Denver Broncos offensive line, I mean, I'm not saying it's going to be a disaster, but for Drew Lock, make sure you have a will ready just in case, because this team might murder you with your protection out front. With this Saints defensive line has been awesome once they've gotten healthy.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about Hendrickson a few times. He's really good, and when Davenport came back, it's like this is just one of the better defensive lines.
Trey Hendrickson's leading the league in sacks.
Yeah. Would you take this or the Steelers? I think that's the debate. Is it this or the Steelers?
I think I go for run defense, the Saints, for pass defense, the Steelers.
That's fair. So that's your defensive line picks? If you pick the defensive line, you're picking the Steelers in the pass, but the Saints in the run?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Although, I mean, this Saints defensive line is no slouch either on pass.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, and the Steelers defensive line is obviously no slouch at run. They're both great. All right, now it's time for you to give me a game.
Yeah, it's my turn. Okay.
Someone else screwed it up this time.
Yeah. Wow. I had these 3 in the list, but I don't love the list. I guess just because it's the worst favorite, I'm going to go Giants at Cincinnati. The Burrow thing sucks, but I guess just pick this one and pick the Giants.
I have the Giants winning this game.
Yes.
All right, so now I'm going to give you a pick. We'll talk about it for a second. Yeah, I mean, the Bengals are boring now. They don't have Joe Burrow. I think the Giants are at least a decent team. Their offense is still a problem, but I don't trust Cincinnati's defense to really be able to do enough to stop them. On the flip side, I think that the Bengals might not score in this game. So it'll be interesting to see what some of their pieces can do without Joe Burrow. I do think that'll be the case. But I think Burrow was doing so much to sort of drive this team. There's a reason this is the bottom 3 team of the week. And 2 other teams that are below are the Jets and Jaguars. And maybe the Bengals without Burrow are worse than one of those teams. I think that this is an easy Giants. This should be an easy Giants victory.
Should be. Yeah. I mean,
Mhm.
there's nothing really to love about this offense when Burrow's not back there. Is it Ryan Finley playing? I didn't even look.
I was assuming so.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you kind of got to think about it that way. I don't, there's nothing I love about this team now. It's just so
Mhm.
heartbreaking. It's really, I don't even want to call it a bad break because I think that the Bengals, I know Joe Mixon was out, but like you have to find ways to, your play calling has to be able to protect the guy. It's no secret that you should know and your team should know that your offensive line's bad. Like,
Yeah.
your team should know that your offensive line's bad. Every other team knows your offensive line's bad. And you're giving guys free runs at your rookie number 1 overall pick, who's not a young number 1 overall pick, too, might I add. It's just so unfortunate. When we were having the Burrow Herbert debate, I felt like Herbert was a more fun pick because I think he's more fun to watch. But I
Mhm.
just feel like, just intangible wise, it's weird to say, but I just feel like Burrow was a better quarterback, and we might not get him next year. We may not see him next year. I think it's going to be a weird thing. I hope they invest in their offensive line because they need to protect this guy.
Yeah, I mean that's for the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean that's priority number one this offseason, is
Penei
get the
Sewell.
offensive. What?
Penei Sewell, first round pick.
Okay, all right, there you go. Yeah, they got to figure that out. For the Giants, you need this win. I mean, the Giants want to make the playoffs, right? That's what they want to do. They want to get the confidence. They want to get some of these young guys some playoff experience. And plus, let's be honest, the Giants are pretty notorious for doing well when they squeak into the playoffs with a bad record when there's a team that's undefeated in the AFC. So I think that could go well for New York if they could squeak in there. They play Cincinnati and they play Dallas. Their 4 other games are Seattle, Cleveland, Arizona, and Baltimore. So honestly, the hope for the Giants, again, the Giants I think they're the best team in this division. I think that the Giants, they actually feel to me like a 7-9, 8-8 team that's just sort of lost a couple of earlier games. But at the same time, they're going to have to find a way to beat one of those playoff teams at least to find a way to get into the playoffs. Get that win, that 6th win that we always talk about being the win that gets you to the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's so tough. Like, I don't love any of these NFC East teams. I don't think anybody should, but I think this is the team I feel most comfortable with. It's crazy to say that you feel most comfortable with Daniel Jones, but I think that's
Yeah.
the state of the NFC East right now. Yeah, I think the Giants are the better team here. I don't think that's a hot take. They've looked really good, I think, the past couple weeks. I think they've been in competitive for just about every game the last 3 or 4 weeks, even if they won or lost. So I'm definitely, yeah, I mean, since the Cowboys game, all of their losses are 3 points or less, basically, and all of their wins are 10 points or less. So
Mhm.
it's a team that plays a lot of close games. I think the only thing I'm interested in is the over-under at 42.5. Even though that's a low number, I'd probably go an under here. I don't think there's going to be a lot of points scored in this one.
The only exception is maybe the turnovers could throw you off. Maybe some turnovers could end up get hitting that to over. But yeah, I mean, that's not a bad take. All right, I'm gonna do something bold here. Ready for this? Gonna give you the Jets second to last here. New York Jets taking on at home against the Miami Dolphins. Yeah, I mean, I know you're gonna have to think about it. You can take your time if you want to. Who are you gonna pick to win this game?
I actually had this one in the same spot as you, but
Okay.
I think there's 2 shoe-ins. I think this is one of them. I think the Dolphins bounce back. I think they're angry. They did not play well. Not a lot worked for them against the Broncos, a team that they should have beat to stay in pace with the division and tie Buffalo. I think they come back out guns blazing. But at the same time, did we overrate this Dolphins team during their winning streak? Did we I think we've seen
I
this
think
time and time
so.
again.
I think so. Mhm.
These teams, for anybody who watches college football, although they played well against Ohio State, this is like Indiana for
Mhm.
the NFL, where teams that just get an obscene amount of turnovers and score a bunch of points off turnovers, that's just not sustainable level of football for an entire season. that's good for a small sample size. So I think that's kind of how I feel about this Dolphins team, that they can't rely on defensive touchdowns, special teams touchdowns all the time. And so while I think they're way better than the Jets, I kind of feel like this is the team out in the playoffs right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree. For this game, they beat the Jets 24-0 already, so you have to feel like they have a pretty good shot. This was the infamous Joe Flacco 24 yard sack game. Joe Flacco's stat line in that one was 44 attempts for 186 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception. So obviously, the Jets aren't going to be able to throw the ball. But you know what? The Jets can never throw the ball, so we're good anyways. They're not going to be expecting this to work out for them. And I think maybe they can get a little bit of running game going, and they just got to hope that Miami somehow screws up and messes it up. I do feel like the Jets have started to slowly play a little bit better. I think this Jets, they have improved. Granted, it was impossible for them to get worse, but you know, they've had back-to-back one-score losses now. They want to win. They don't want to go 0-16. Their schedule is tough down the stretch. They play the Las Vegas Raiders, the Seahawks, the Rams, and the Browns before finishing it up week 17 against New England. So if they don't squeak out this win in a divisional matchup against a team they played before, it might be week 17 fighting for the first win of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. So I do think this is interesting, though. So I think the Jets have marginally gotten better, and I think Jacksonville's gotten a lot worse since the beginning of the season. Mm-hmm. If they played right now, who would you pick? Jets or Jaguars?
Well, it was interesting, right? Because I do feel like I think I'd pick the Jets. I think I really would. I feel like the Jets are at least competent on defense. They're not good. They're not good at all, but they can be okay. And especially, I mean, it depends on is Luton out there or is it Minshew? But if it's Luton, I think I got the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's absurd to pick them at all. But yeah, I think the Jets have proven to be frisky. I think the one thing that I like, I mean, there's definitely 2 players that are worth keeping on this Jets team, and I think they drafted well in the draft this year. Yeah. Even though they didn't, there was like some weird GM stuff where they didn't have a GM for the draft, I think, if I remember. But whoever was picking for them, Mekhi Becton and Denzel Mims, both look like they're going to play in the league for a little bit. They both look really good.
I believe, if I remember correctly, I could be wrong, I believe they fired their GM like immediately after the draft, which makes sense because he actually did a decent job. Right. Yeah, I mean, this is the quest to go 1-15. I noticed as a Bucs fan, we had some seasons where we started off 0-7, 0-8. You don't want to go 0-16. I don't care what anyone says. You want to get that win. It's just too embarrassing to go 0-16. People remember the 0-16 Browns. People remember the 0-16 Lions. You don't want to be the third and final 0-16 team. Let's talk about the 1-15 team. This is your game you're giving me, but there's only one game left. I'm picking the Cleveland Browns. That's all I have to say.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Good show. I mean, yeah, this Jaguars team is an absolute train wreck. Now you can argue that they're not a complete abomination against the run. They're definitely better against the run than against the pass, but at the same time, they still given up top 10 rushing touchdowns in the NFL. And I think that their run defense doesn't look so bad because so many teams are looking at this pass defense like, all right, let's stats pad here a little bit. They only give up 4.3 yards per carry, but at the same time, like, do you have any chance for this run defense against Chubb and Hunt?
No. And also, I mean, the chance is that it just makes Cleveland throw the ball a little bit more, and Baker Mayfield has his worst day, which, Baker Mayfield having a bad day is a lot worse than a lot of other guys having bad days. So you hope that you get like a Baker Mayfield 3 turnover performance, including 3 of them being pick sixes. I think that's pretty much what you need make Baker Mayfield to throw the game away, but it's still hard to imagine they would win with that. And again, this Browns defensive lines played well. They had 5 sacks last week and got consistent pressure when they didn't even have Myles Garrett on the field. So I mean, it's a bad matchup on top of a bad talent disparity. Again, cut to a week later when Jacksonville pulls off the upset. I just don't see it happening. I think Cleveland covers the 6.5 point spread.
I agree. I've been, I think, higher on.
I forgot about this. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. I completely forgot. Yeah, thank you in the chat for letting me. Luton got benched for Mike Glennon. I forgot about this. Yes, it's Mike Glennon starting. Why do teams still think Mike Glennon can start? Explain this.
Listen. 6'6", long neck. Maybe it happens. Yeah,
yeah.
That's been the best argument is because Mike Glennon's tall. It's going to work out for him. I mean, I've obviously been.
Were you talking to John Elway during that?
Yeah.
Was that your friend saying that?
Yeah. I mean, look, I've obviously been a lot higher on the Browns, and I think you've been the whole year. I said the Browns are a playoff team in the offseason. I still think they're a playoff team. I don't love a lot of what this Browns team's doing, but I just think that with a guy like Mayfield, they're so good at controlling the clock. They're so good at controlling possession, and I think it's definitely. I don't think it's definitely helped their defense play a lot better when they're not on the field as much, and I think that helps. I think the problem with the Browns is everything has worked in their favor because they've played bad teams and been able to control the clock. The problem is they're going to make the playoffs, and they're going to go down 10-0, and the game's essentially over because there's no chance the Browns come back and win a lot of games. There's just no chance with the team they have, them coming back and winning a lot of games when they can't control the clock.
I mean, yeah, no, it's a good. The chance they have to win would just be if like they find a way to. If they just sort of do what the Texans did, sorry, my brain broke for a second. The way for them to win would be if they do what the Titans did, because run the ball a bunch, make there be 8 possessions in a game, and just get lucky and be able to get some upsets. But yeah, I mean, I just don't think they're a good team. I don't think the Browns are going to make the playoffs. I've accepted it. I think they're just going to probably. I think they have an easier schedule, although the schedule was a little bit more difficult than I remembered. The easy part's kind of. Part of the easy part is just beating Jacksonville. But I just think that I don't trust Baker Mayfield. I mean, again, we talk about the reason why I was lower on Cleveland than you were was because of Baker Mayfield. And I kind of feel like we've both been proven right in some ways, where you like the Browns for all of these things. I dislike the Browns for certain things. I feel like both of those two things have been true, but they've just been able to win games. So you're more right. But I feel like my problems with the Cleveland Browns are still problems with the Cleveland Browns.
So this is an interesting debate. If they edge out the Dolphins for the playoffs, is Stefanski in the Coach of the Year debate, or is it just Tomlin? If the Dolphins miss the playoffs,
Dolphins missed the playoff. So I haven't thought a ton about this. So who are the candidates, right? Who is there anyone? I'm trying to just think. I think I could see somehow John Gruden getting into conversation a little bit. I could see Frank Reich getting into conversation here. Maybe even if
Gruden, Tomlin are definitely sure things. I think Sean Payton's going to get a lot of talk for, dealing with the Michael Thomas situation and keeping that team rolling to a 1 seed. And I think Stefanski has to be in the conversation if he gets his team into the playoffs.
Yeah, and I'll throw another guy out. How about Joe Judge? I could see him getting in this conversation if New York goes on a bit of a run and makes the playoffs. I don't think that's out of the question that he could make the playoffs of like a 6-10 team and still win a Coach of the Year, because I think people have been impressed with him, sort of similar to how people were impressed with Brian Flores last year. Yeah, I mean, I think the favorite probably is Brian Flores if the Dolphins get in.
What about Adam Gase? A lot of teams talk about going 0-16, but it's very hard for a coach to actually execute it to perfection. Gase has executed it to perfection. He's got to be in the conversation.
Yes, that's good. I think I give it to Frank Reich. I think that's my pick.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair. Frank Reich stock has probably gone through the roof. It's essentially now like Apple stock. It's not even worth investing in. Frank Reich has been absurd, and the way the Eagles have played it just made it skyrocket even more.
Yeah,
I can agree with a lot of things.
I feel like that's helped him just as much as his own coaching job has done. And for Colts fans, you have to love Josh McDaniels as well for not taking that job and landing you, Frank Reich. All right. Well, fun show. Long show. That's on
Hashtag
me.
fun show.
Yeah. Hashtag fun show. Some people are saying Cliff Kingsbury as well, but I think that I mean I don't know.
I don't like Kingsbury. I don't like what he's done, but the Cardinals have talent. We'll just move on from that. So.
Yeah. I mean, they have exceeded expectations, but that's kind of my problem with Coach of the Year is I feel like sometimes it just goes to who exceeds expectations. I mean, Mike Tomlin's been great this year. Like I wouldn't hate him. I don't know. Also, one more comment. Nathan Fogari. I don't know. Thoughts on Jameis starting over, or thoughts on the Saints starting Taysom over Jameis? He asked us about 17 times, and we answered this. We talked about this already. So try to keep up, guys.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing else to say about that. We talked about that in the Saints section of the podcast. So
yes. But we appreciate the comments nonetheless. We're just having a little fun.
I did notice that we got through like 5 games and all of a sudden we were 45 minutes in.
Yeah.
Like, oh crap.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how that happened. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes we're just having fun talking about games, and next thing we know, we've done too much. But okay, yeah, that's our show, everyone. Thanks for watching live. We appreciate it. Also, thanks to everyone who watches after the fact. And until next time, have a good one.
Peace.